Hey everyone, we are back with a new series called Advancing With, and today we are speaking with Adam Golomb, who's now the president at Primanti Bros. Adam, say what's up.
Hey, Adam Golomb. I'm the president and chief marketing officer of Primanti Brothers.
What's changed for you since we last spoke?
I'd say the biggest change is our restaurants are fully reopened. Personally, I was promoted to president about 7 months ago. But those are really the two biggest changes. Kind of the world is, I'd call it somewhat back to normal, but not fully back. But our restaurants reopening was a big moment.
So how'd you kind of advance through that and push through that and then lead into you taking the new position?
From a business standpoint, is really being flexible, pivoting a whole lot based on the business needs, based on government regulations, based on, we were open, we were closed, we were open with 25% seating. So it was kind of wild ride.
How did you personally manage you and your team and just, everyone in the company, going through those, like, obviously what are very sudden changes for an industry that,
Yeah.
kind of would love some consistency, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, over communication was the first thing. We started with daily calls, actually twice a day. Then we went to daily. Then we went to a couple times a week. Now we're down to kind of a weekly all team call. We created a simple thing is creating an email box where people could submit questions, ideas, concerns to a central place in a central group. And then the last thing was kind of identifying stuff that kind of worked or didn't work and getting out of it pretty fast and trying to refocus the efforts on things that we knew worked, that we knew drove the business.
And do you see this as like a new era of the restaurant industry after all this, or?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest change, two big change. One is digital. Probably about 5 years of innovation happened in about 5 months. Our fans have adopted digital in a big way and using our digital channels way bigger than pre-pandemic. And then the second is the off-premise kind of takeout delivery business. Once again, same thing, accelerated use of it. We thought as we reopened the restaurants, the takeout business would go back to normal pre-pandemic levels, and it hasn't. We think just people have found out that takeout from Primanti's is a really great experience.
Is there anything that you had to change in the processes or on the restaurant side that make sure that you could deliver like a great takeout experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we continue to look at our buildings to identify ways to make it better operationally. We've changed staffing model. We now have dedicated takeout person during all shifts in the restaurants that didn't really exist before, except in select restaurants. We enacted technology from a company called Flyby, which is GPS enabled tracking technology. So we're able to track our fans when they're leaving their house. They tell us they're on their way, and we're able to tell when they pull in. The goal is to get the food out to the car in under 2 minutes, which is better than fast food. That's kind of our goal is like, how do we be better than fast food?
How have you continued to, maintain the company culture or grow the company culture, even in your new position in this time?
Yeah, I mean, it started with, we kept our operations team. We didn't do any furloughs in our management ranks at the operations level and at our operations leadership team. So that was really key. The general manager at the restaurant is really the carrier of the culture. We recently opened our newest restaurant in Uniontown, Pennsylvania. So it was great to see. We had 80 positions we hired for. I think we had over 500 people apply for the job, which was great to see that reception and see how we could take culture from other restaurants and bring it in there and really, extend the Primanti's culture. But we kept the team together. We've had low turnover in our management ranks, which has been great to see. We continue to grow, actively working on new locations for next year. So we're excited about, this 88, 89-year-old brand growing again.
Give us a little insight of how the promotion happened, how you kind of ended up being the president, if you can, whatever you can share. Give us a little bit of that story about, how you ended up.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a surprise, which those are the best. But, our CEO has been also president for the last couple of years. And it was, I think, an opportunity for me to broaden my skills and broaden my impact on the company. So I have operations reporting into me now and marketing. It is the old, marketing can't complain about operations and operations can't complain about marketing anymore. Because, in the restaurant industry, those have been two groups that have always, pushed and pulled against each other. I think it was opportunity to get a fresh perspective on things, and also free our CEO up to focus on kind of the next growth of the company, not having to be totally tied up in day-to-day pieces. So it's been exciting. It's been, learning experience, drinking from the fire hose.
It's been like one of the most interesting learning experiences or just changes for you, coming from marketing and kind of taking on marketing and, operations and being direct reports to you and kind of managing both those things.
Yeah, I'd say the big thing is in marketing. I mean, at least in our company, it's a small team. So, ability to get things done in a small group is easier to move that dial. You look in operations, we have 1,900, we call them players and coaches in operations, so 1,900 employees. So to get that group to move, and you really got to move through people and influence. I found it much easier to kind of get things done faster in marketing, but now, with operation, you got to broaden your skill set and kind of set the strategy out. And then we have people that have to, you can't be in the weeds on everything. Same time, my marketing team's really stepped up and backfilled in on some of the work.
What's a key piece of advice you'd give to other senior leaders now with your experience, to help advance their careers or be flexible?
Somebody once told me, kind of this active model. And I think, ultimately I wasn't the president, but I was involved in more than just marketing. So I was kind of acting, beyond I think as you become a senior leader, it's less about the functional area and more about the company as a whole thing. And I think it was internally, I think people were always more excited when it's an internal candidate if they like the person, but I got good feedback. I think people like, the person they know versus somebody externally. So it was great to have an internal promotion. I think it continues to tell the story. We're really big on internal promotions, and you can't replicate culture with a new person as easy as replicating culture internally.
From just your perspective, and for anyone that is looking maybe to grow their career or take the next step, what's the key to growing yourself professionally and personally from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. So that'd be number one, constantly reading, constantly talking to people. That's number one. And then number two is building relationships and networking. I've been fortunate over my career to build a great network of people that I can pick up the phone and call and talk through ideas, bounce ideas off, ask what they're working on. So those have really been the two, I think, strengths.
All right, let's move on to just talking a little bit about, on that note, like future generations, right? What do you think the younger generation should be doing to prepare themselves for our industry right now?
I think it's great to be a specialist early in your career, but I think ultimately you need to be a generalist. So if you're in social media, you should be learning about analytics. And if you're in analytics, you should be learning about creative. I don't think you'd be asked to take over a group if you don't have a broad skill set. You don't need to be an expert at every piece, because ultimately you either hire those people or bring an agency partner in. But I think that's really key is, it's okay to come in as an analytics person, but over time you need to learn more about the various, if it's marketing, various forms of marketing, and what works, what doesn't work.
What do you think is the biggest difference between like 5-15 years ago in our industry, till and now?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I started, fax machines were the way people communicated. And the other thing was we used to wait, this woman, Sybil, used to come around with mail every day, and you'd send memos and you just wait for her to come back with a response. So I'd say that's the number one thing, is the speed is just unbelievable in the ability to do things. I mean, we are pivoting marketing strategies on a daily basis. We used to pivot campaigns 6 months out. Now we're pivoting them daily. And the ability to track and understand what works and doesn't work, that the days of running ads and not knowing if they worked or don't, just, you can't do that anymore.
Is there something now that you wish you knew, earlier in your career?
Yeah. I mean, I think I still have this, I'm a shiny object guy, but I think that's key, is to not get excited about the newest, shiniest object. So, TikTok is great. I would love us to be working on TikTok, but we only have the resources to really, manage LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So it's like, put your effort where you think you're gonna have the biggest bang. Just because it's the new shiny object doesn't mean it's better than what you have today. Really maximize the things you've invested in today before you go try something new.
What do you, for like the industry, what do you see in the market and advertising industry going like into the future?
I continue to see more one-to-one messaging. I mean, that's really the space we're playing in now. The ability to deliver messaging that makes sense at the right moment, right time, it's available now, and you can track the results. So that is the world we live in today. We're trying to deliver more one-to-one messaging or one to smaller group messaging than running broad media. We're heavy digital, very focused on the digital environment and ability to use data and targeting to really get to people with a message that makes sense to them, that's relevant.
What about the restaurant industry in just particular? What do you see, changes for the future coming?
You definitely see people making smaller buildings because of drive-through, takeout. I think those will be continue to do. You're seeing robotics. There's a heavy labor crunch going on. So you're seeing the use of robotics. And I think that will continue to be a place where can you automate either back of the house functions. I don't see it as much front of the house, but also the use of AI. There is Chick-fil-A is right now, I mean, they're kind of interesting. They have people doing drive-through orders that aren't living in the same city. So they've got people like work from home that are answering drive-through orders out of their house, and taking them and putting them in, which is kind of an interesting strategy. And then you're seeing people use robots in the back of the house to produce food. I think that's probably the next kind of horizon. Labor is not going to get any easier. So it's, how do you focus your effort around it?
When do you think when like in your perspective, like when do you think you're going to see like, robots helping to make food on a more regular basis?
You're starting to see it now. I would say it's very small, probably like 1% of restaurants are using it, but you're starting to see it. Costs are starting to get to the place where, if you can pay this thing back in a year and a half from a labor savings, I think people will do more of it. But you're seeing there's a robot called Flippy that flips French fries and hamburgers. That's kind of, it's coming. It's not far off. That's probably the one that is probably the farthest along.
What would you say to the future generations? Obviously robotics, every generation goes on, robotics have become more prevalent into workforces. Like, what's your advice with managing and handling that? Or, like in one theory, it's hard to say, right? Because one's like, you're gonna get more jobs out of it, and other times you take away jobs. What do you thought?
I don't think it's I think jobs get transferred. You go back to like the 1800s when farming was large. I think it's that you look at the transportation crunch right now going on in the supply chain. If it's partially because there's not enough drivers. Automated vehicles will help with that. And I think that's the key. It's Pittsburgh's a great example of that. The steel mill days aren't here anymore, but there's a lot of companies that in automation, robotics, digital that weren't here 5-10 years ago. That just, you go down to the Strip District, it's unbelievable the number of buildings going up. And they're all digital companies and AI and robotics. So it'll be interesting to see. Pittsburgh, I think, once again, will be in the forefront of this, which will be great for Pittsburgh, great for the community.
Just in general, obviously, I think it's a great question because your work has changed, and we kind of talked about a little bit like, how has your work changed and your responsibilities changed since before the pandemic? And what would you like to see more or less of in regards to that?
I think we're in a hybrid model, so we're not in the office full time. The number of meetings is reduced dramatically. That is like a win. The number of time to focus on work. I would say the people interaction piece is, especially as COVID has died down, as people got vaccinated, that, getting out on the road always is something I'd love to be more out on the restaurants, more out with the team. That's always you just got to make the time to do that. But yeah, you definitely see less meetings. In my mind, I don't ever see, at least our company, going back to a full 5-day a week, everyone in the office work week we found out people are more functional in all areas when they're, especially in the office. Now in the restaurant's a different world because you can't work out of your house, but that's been a real change. The way people learn that it's okay to work remotely, you don't have to be in the same office. You're going to see more of that. People can live where they want to live and work for companies in other cities.
Obviously, we talked a lot about like how you were adjusting, having to stay at home, but now in hybrid model, obviously things are a little bit more open than they were last time we spoke. So what have you kind of adjusted back to? Like, you've been traveling again, like what's your next destination? If so, like what's going on there?
Tomorrow I'm off to my first conference post-pandemic. So excited about that. You get a proof of vaccination, you got to get tested when you arrive. So, over the top standpoint, but very appreciative of that. So, it's back, I would call it somewhat normal, definitely a new normal, but somewhat back to the old normal.
And then with your job change, have you had to do anything to continue to balance, better your work-life balance and, manage stress, et cetera?
No, nothing out of the normal. It's just more stress, but just manage it and, flow through it.
Yeah. What else is new, right?
Yeah.
What's your plan to advance your work in the next year or two?
Starting to work on 2022 right now. We're trying to finalize our company goals, looking to build off this year, especially we believe we'll get back to even more normal next year. So, excited to continue to build the team, getting the company back to growth. We're going to open a couple of new locations next year. So we're super excited about that.